Like anything associated with the human experience, energy has a vibrantly colorful past, one that is virtually guaranteed to catalyze a new and perhaps contentious way forward. Wood, a renewable biomass, was the first ever source of energy and continued to remain the preeminent basis of productivity in the United States until the mid to late 1800s, when coal fueled the second half of the Industrial Revolution. Another paradigm shift would occur in the middle of the 20th century when petroleum products rose to dominance, and alongside it, a rapid increase in the usage of natural gas. While coal would continue to make significant contributions, mainly as a primary energy source for electric power generation, another more distinctly controversial element would make its presence known. Under the atomic number 92, uranium is the heaviest and last naturally occurring element in the periodic table. During the age of the Roman Empire, the element was used as an ornamental accessory, with yellow-colored glass containing more than 1% uranium oxide being discovered in Naples, Italy, and which date back to 79 AD, according to research conducted by chemistry expert C.R. Hammond. More closer to modern times, the discovery of the element is credited to German chemist Martin Heinrich Klaproth, who named it after the then newly discovered planet Uranus. But it wasn't until 1896 when uranium's inherent radioactivity was discovered, when Henri Becquerel, a French physicist and Nobel laureate, left a sample of potassium uranyl sulfate on top of an unexposed photographic plate, determining later that emissions from the uranium salt had exposed the plate. Uranium research would continue well into the 20th century, with fervor accelerating towards the development of the atomic bomb. While it would never lose its dubious association with military proliferation, a direct consequence of the rapidly escalating Cold War, uranium took a decidedly commercial-friendly path on December 20th, 1951, when Argonne National Laboratory's experimental breeder Reactor 1 became the first nuclear reactor to generate electricity. 2.5 years later, the introduction of the world's first commercial-scale nuclear power plant in Obninsk, a small city some 62 miles southwest of Moscow, confirmed the beginning of a different kind of war, the business of nuclear commerce. Today, the United States is the world's largest producer of nuclear power, accounting for more than 30% of worldwide nuclear generation of electricity, according to the World Nuclear Association. The country's 104 nuclear reactors produced 821 billion kilowatt-hours in 2011, accounting for over 19% of total domestic electrical output. However, the United States imports 95% of its uranium and only produces about 5 million pounds of uranium compared to the 50 million pounds that it consumes. However, the recent crisis in Fukushima, along with other highly publicized meltdown events leading to a 30-year period where very few reactors were built in the US, have placed a damper within the court of public opinion. Also negatively affecting the nuclear power industry is the volatility of fossil fuel-based commodities, which became most evident in 2009 when a precipitous decline in the price of gas placed the economic viability of proposed nuclear power plant projects in doubt. This has given rise to a potentially game-changing revolution in thorium. Billed as a direct competitor to uranium, thorium, named after the Norse god of thunder Thor, is claimed to produce an equivalent amount of power but without any of the nasty side effects that is psychologically linked to the public's perception of worst-case scenarios. From a supply-demand perspective, the International Atomic Energy Agency places the total of known and estimated thorium resources at 4.4 million tons, which makes it more abundant than uranium within the Earth's crust. According to Forbes.com, the most common source of thorium is a rare earth phosphate mineral, monazite. World monazite resources are estimated to be about 12 million tons, 2/3 of which are in India. This has significant geopolitical implications, considering that India has a far more friendlier posture to the United States and its allies than that of its neighbor China, which is increasingly becoming belligerent and therefore unreliable as a trading partner. Writing for scientific research-based magazine Cosmos, Tim Dean expressed one of the most hopeful outlooks for thorium when he stated, "What if we could build a nuclear reactor that offered no possibility of a meltdown, generated its power inexpensively, created no weapons-grade byproducts, and burnt up existing high-level waste as well as old nuclear weapon stockpiles? And what if the waste produced by such a reactor was radioactive for a mere few hundred years rather than tens of thousands?" It may sound too good to be true, but such a reactor is indeed possible, and a number of teams around the world are now working to make it a reality. So if thorium really is the antidote for the world's most pressing energy and ecological challenges, what has prevented its mainstream proliferation? The critical obstacle for thorium utilization is that it is not vigorously fissile, meaning that unlike enriched uranium, it cannot produce power independently without an outside catalyst. It also lacks the ability to maintain criticality in that the end of the thorium cycle does not produce enough neutrons to keep the reaction self-sustaining. This is the reason why reactors using thorium fuel are called subcritical reactors. Thus, thorium faces a two-stage obstacle, a technical one in providing the thorium fuel with enough neutrons to keep the reaction self-sustainable, and a more rational one, that is, doing this in an economically profitable manner. Although there are organizations addressing the drawbacks of thorium utilization, the technology is young and undeniably expensive. By the time thorium becomes commercially viable, advances in other energy-related endeavors totally unrelated to the nuclear fission process could demand a majority share of scientific research dollars. This brings up another impediment to the commercialization of thorium. While the thorium cycle produces far less plutonium byproducts, it still maintains the critical hazards of fuel mining and fabrication, reactor safety, production of dangerous waste, and the possibility of nuclear weapons proliferation, according to Jan Baranek, leader of Greenpeace International's energy campaign. Since thorium is a technology that is derived from nuclear fission, it cannot escape its inherent risk factors. Therefore, from a practical perspective, thorium may ultimately prove to be a distraction, a sort of COINTELPRO against an already viable industry that is poised to move higher. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, the world's energy consumption will increase by an estimated 56% by the year 2040, or an annualized rate of nearly 2.1%. At this trajectory, few countries have the patience nor the wherewithal to invest in a foreign and unprecedented technology which may or may not work as advertised. Traditional nuclear power is also partaking in an underappreciated makeover. After years of decline, the US government's research and development funding for nuclear energy is being revived with the objective of rebuilding American leadership in nuclear technology. In a cooperative task force that consolidates research laboratories, the nuclear industry, and academia, the federal government has significantly stepped up R&D expenditures for future plants that improve or go well beyond current designs. A particular interest is a next-generation nuclear plant, or NGNP, a project that will develop a Generation 4 high-temperature gas-cooled reactor, which would be part of a system that would produce both electricity and hydrogen on a large scale. The Department of Energy has forwarded a goal to have a pilot plant ready at its Idaho National Laboratory by 2021. In spite of all the complexities and various moving parts, the energy dilemma boils down to one action. When people flip the switch, do they see light? Those that answer this question in the most cost-efficient manner will ultimately win the war. As of yet, nothing matches the power potential and compactness of nuclear energy, and the world's increasing size and demands come down to cold, hard numbers. Further, thorium was only recently proven to provide power during a reactor test in Norway last year, and it could take decades before the idea takes on commercial and scientific prominence. Therefore, look for nuclear power and more specifically, uranium-based companies to lead the advance in global energy proliferation.